welcome to today's AMA. We are, believe it or not, in the middle of July 17th, 2026. Maybe a little later, depending on your time zone, but that's where we are at the moment. And today's AMA is a little bit different. So we typically have pre-submitted questions. We go through those questions, and we also try to get to the chat if we can. And then we pick 3 winners, typically from the pre-submitted questions. So today we're just going to take questions from the chat. There will be 3 winners, and of course that will come from the chat, but now we're going to primarily focus just on the chat questions. And as you know, in typical style, we usually go a little bit over for the people who like to hang around a little bit longer. And we try to answer every single question. And if there's ever a question, I don't know, I'm sure there's been questions we haven't answered due to time constraints. But if there's ever a question that we haven't answered, didn't answer, skipped over for some reason, you know where to find us. You can tag us, you can DM us, friend request us. We always are active in the Discord, active in DMs, on X, especially lately. We are, a lot of founders say they're different. I hope that we've proven that we're different in the fact that we are available and willing to engage with the community. So today we are going to be discussing the cinematics. We have Rosco with us. We're going to be revealing, so you guys remember a couple weeks ago, I think it was, we revealed the Origins trailer for the Archer character. And today we have the Origins video for the Mage. The other day, you guys saw a wonderful gameplay. It was, I don't even know how to describe it, but as a gameplay video that also shows in reality what the Mage is doing in the game. All this stuff is being made by Rosco, his team, and he's joining us today, and we're very excited to discuss cinematics. So this is what we're going to be discussing today, cinematics. All the questions will be centered around that. With that, Zulfiqar, how are you? You are muted. Sorry, Zulfiqar, are you with us?
I am back. Sorry about that. I had to go get some water. Oh, I heard you hand it off to me the moment I got up to walk away, and I was like, oh, great. Sorry, brother. I'm on my laptop today. All my headphones are cooked, and the one set that still works, I fell asleep with them in my head last night, and now they've disappeared. The gremlins have eaten them. You gotta love when that happens.
I will admit I use my earbuds for earplugs as well. They have a dual purpose. If there's somebody making noise, I try to use them for both. So I completely understand. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. It's weird using my laptop. I feel like I'm 10 years in the past. Like, hello? Did you get my poke? I'm poking you.
MySpace, my top 8 for the people who remember. Well, thank you.
We're good. Ross, you here?
Rosco, how are you, sir?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm here. I'm alive.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So today's exciting. It's less of a tell and more of a show day. Those are always fun to have.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow, you want to roll
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and show the video? If you guys wouldn't mind muting yourselves just so it doesn't replay back and echo. Go ahead and let's see here. All right, there you go. Okay, guys, so the way we're going to structure this, we're going to go ahead and show the Mage video. Again, this Mage video, it will be uploaded separately, but you guys being here on the AMA get to see it for the first time. Rosco worked very hard on this, stayed up very late getting this done, and he's been doing all the cinematics. Madison, of course, is a very talented vocalist, and we can talk a little bit about that as well. We're going to be taking questions, of course, like we said. I see the questions populating, so don't worry, we'll get to them. We're going to show the Mage video, and then after that, we'll discuss it a little bit, and then we'll take some questions.
Welcome, young scholars, to our ancient halls. We have been waiting for you. Some of you will learn faster than others. But it's not a race. It's knowledge.
Stop stopping! Clear the area!
and Jabal al-Nar teaches for eternity. This is the healthy ember that fuels our academy. It keeps the ancient fires burning. Let the storm break free. The ember is dying, and we can't stop it. And the academy will end.
I will not let that happen. The academy has given me life. I will not let it lose its own.
There is a way, but you would have to go alone.
There must be another way. I will be back soon with Ember.
And it is very, very dangerous.
Welcome to the Fifth Kingdom. How long are you visiting for?
Only a few nights.
This is a restricted area.
That will buy you a safe ride.
The brightest light in Kamara was never its moon. It was the wisdom passed from one generation to the next. Your path, young mage, is like the storm. It crashes with great force. If you succeed in your mission, you will save Kamara.
So every time we play these videos, I have no idea how to follow up the energy, but I do. I try to do the best I can. I don't know how you follow that up, but if that doesn't make you want to watch more, then I don't know how to fix that problem. Zulfiqar, Rosco, we can jump in now and discuss this a little bit. I want to ask Rosco a question. Well, actually, both of you could answer this because you're both creative people, but this is definitely for Rosco. You know, I am not an overly creative kind of person. I know there are people who are, there are people who aren't. What goes into making this? What goes into, because you're a professional, you write this, you are creating this, you're sort of, you're visualizing this, conceptualizing this. What goes into all of this other than the late nights?
Oh man, yeah, that's a loaded question. Zulfi will send over lore that's just pages and pages, like a huge amount of lore. And then how to depict that within 3 minutes. I mean, even this one, it's the first version of it was like 7 minutes long. And so to get it down, it's a huge process. And so just kind of trying to distill what's the most important elements of that, or how to tell those certain elements of the lore, and then also give it a narrative through line. That's the first step, is just figuring out what is the narrative. How do I actually tell a little story that's going to leave you wanting more, like you just said, is going to tease little elements that we can kind of explore a little bit later, but still be an engaging little storyline, something that sets up a problem and sets up a mission and sets up our character to get to the Fifth Kingdom, and then just retroactively working backwards. I'll take that narrative and then I'll go design every single shot for shot. And so I'll just go make a huge folder of storyboards, and every single one of those shots I'll then go and animate using various tools, and then put that all together, and then I edit it just like I would edit a normal movie in Premiere. That's really where, I mean, the time, because we're using, some AI tools, we're using traditional VFX tools, we're using traditional Premiere and editing tools, all those things combined, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, but I'm glad, yeah, I'm glad it's effective. Seems like you guys like it.
You touched on something that I think would be worth exploring a little bit more. You talked about your background and how you are in Hollywood and you do a lot of, producing and writing and things like that. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about your background, your experience in the industry, and sort of some projects you've worked on?
Yeah. I mean, I work in development, and on the writing side, directing side, I've directed, a bunch of short films and music videos and commercials. On the writing side, working in film and television on a pilot right now, and another and a feature film. And so, I just stay. Literally, my days are filled with notes calls all day from morning till night. Is I'm taking notes from this client or that client, or creating story, or we call it breaking. I was recently commissioned to adapt an IP for this Vegas private investigation company. And so basically it's very similar in this, and where I'm taking years, in this case, they have decades of cases, and then trying to find a way to distill that into a single pilot episode of television. And so I have a lot of experience in taking, just like what Zulfi's been giving me, which is basically, a lifetime of stories that he's been conjuring up in his head, and then, kind of handing it over, like, all right, make a movie, and so, yeah, like I said, I have a lot of experience in story specifically, and so this has been pretty fulfilling in that regard, because there's things that you can do now with animation and with AI that, um you know it's generative in the sense that it makes the images, but it doesn't write the images, it doesn't write the story, it doesn't actually create the storylines, it doesn't actually, you know what I mean? So it's like you can do things that you couldn't do even a year ago. And so that's become incredibly exciting, and something that we can do here with this particular project.
Well,
Yeah,
it's a really we're getting a lot of really great questions, but let me kind of combine you two for a little bit, if you don't mind. Fusion dance time. What does the creative process look like, Zulfiqar, from your side of coming up with the concept, coming up with, because in in these videos, guys, there's a lot of detail being added that's going to be expanded upon later. There's a lot of things, and if you've seen the lore, you've seen that we're talking geography, we're talking the weather, we're talking about the politics, the history. There are little elements, and these are little changes that don't whisper. These are changes that scream in these videos that they're maybe noticeable, maybe not, but this is all of the sort of focus that goes into these videos, and not just the videos, but also with coming up with the concepts as well. So, Zulfiqar, what does it look like to come up with this, hand it off to Roscoe, sort of like the creative process from A to Z, with you two sort of combining on these?
That's a big question. To be candid, the handoff for me to Ross is like that's sort of like a W to Z. I've known Roscoe for over a decade now. It's kind of amazing just to see his journey and how his career's taken off, and then how we come back together. Um, the storylines we've been working on, this is over decades worth of storylines. I'm pulling things from fan fiction I wrote when I was 16 years old, like uh the cosmology. Ross, you'll catch some notes when I send over like the cosmology notes. You'll pick up things that I sent you in notes from 2017 when we were on the set of the freaking Bobby short film you were filming at the Lion's Tail bar.
Yeah.
Sometimes, well, I'll just tell you, I'm a nerd. That's the candid answer, Shadow. I'm a nerd, and I come by it naturally. I come by it honestly. I grew up reading books. I grew up in the Dragon Riders of Pern. I grew up in Narnia. I grew up in Allegasia. I grew up in all these different worlds, and I loved it. The escapism was there for me. So there's a lot of things that pay homage, but when it comes to building the Fifth Kingdom, I've always enjoyed worlds that feel real. When I tried to explain a Game of Thrones to people who had never seen the show or never read the book, at a 10,000-foot view, it didn't make sense to people. It was the number one television show in the world. It was a global phenomenon. It was one of those things that in the information digital age brought people back together for an hour a night, one day out of the week. It did something for film and short form storytelling that hadn't been done in a long time and was falling out of fashion. And when I try to describe it to people, they say, "Well, what's it about?" And I say, "Okay, it's got zombies, dragons, political intrigue. It's Harry Potter meets Lord of the Rings meets House of Cards." And they go, "Wow, that sounds like a lot." But it really doesn't even do it justice. But one of the things that George did so well with his world was he created characters that felt real. Why do they feel real? Because they weren't cookie cutters. There wasn't good guys and bad guys. Everybody was gray. We all have that friend. We all have that person. We are that person. Everybody has who they present to the world, and then we have the person we see in the mirror. I wanted our world to, of course, be fantasy. It's a high fantasy, low fantasy, dark fantasy. It's a fantasy world. We made it up, but it should feel real. And the things that make it feel real are the themes, the impressions, the elements of real life that we've put into it. And then also, I'm a big fan of world building. Uh, Ross would make these he would make these stories, and I would just create these worlds around them. I'd be like, oh yeah, well this person probably did that because of this. Well, that means other people should do this, and I start creating these rules in these worlds. I believe that if you give the audience a left and a right lateral limit, you can tell any story you want as long as you don't pull a MacGuffin or jump the shark. As long as you stay within that left and right, the audience will think it's real. It's like that hypothetical question where it's like those when you see people that are like members of fandoms and they'll argue if something was realistic or not. If you're not a part of that fandom, the conversation sounds like, well, no, this fake thing and this fake thing isn't realistic. And you'll say, well, none of it's realistic. It's not real. But to the people that have the escapism, to the people that give themselves over to these worlds, it does make sense. So when you see people arguing over, well, no, Green Lantern could beat Superman, or no, Superman couldn't do this, as long as you have a rule set that people understand, if you play within the rules, they will suspend disbelief and play with you. So what we did with Fifth Kingdom was I tried to bring in themes and elements of the real world. If this world were real, if the areas were in this part of the planet, what would the weather look like? Okay, if that's what the weather looks like, what would the animals look like that would inhabit this? What would the ecology look like? Everything gets very, very micro, but then it plays out. So I would say that what I did was I tried to create a setting. I created a world with rules, and here's the difference. You heard it earlier. Roscoe said that the initial video was like 7 minutes. I wanted to keep the 7 minute video. I've said it before on other AMAs. I've said it in private. I could never do what he does professionally. This is why he's the pro and I'm the schmo. What separates professionals from amateurs is what I see him do in the editing room. It kills me, and it's not even my product. Like I've seen him late night edits, Ross, back in the day, old school Blur Boy status. Uh, when you're in that small little studio, you and Way, just editing, and I'm watching stuff, and I'm like, okay, that scene's great. That's definitely gonna make it in there. And then 30 minutes into it, you go, no, we got to cut it. And I'm like, how could you cut it? And it's one of those things where when you see the sausage getting made, you think, well, how are people going to know? And so, one of the values I think that people need to understand is when he's making a 3 minute video, he's taking a world that exists, but he's telling a story. I feel like I tell stories, but I really don't. I like to build worlds. Ross is one of those people that can tell stories in the world. He tells stories that get people invested, that get them interested, and he knows when to cut the fluff and just leave the meat and potatoes. Shadow, it's like what you do on the business side for us. I give you a bajillion ideas, and then you turn it into 10 core concepts that are ready for prime time, ready for release. It's the same thing with Ross. I will give him 20, 30 pages of lore, and I'll say, okay. And he'll be like, okay, so this is Kamara? I'm like, no, this is just the Ember Orders, man. This is how a young acolyte matriculates through the system and then becomes a part of, what they do. And this is what they do, why they do it, why they might, and this is how they interface with blah blah blah. And then he takes all of that and then respecting the idea and the histrionics behind what I'm creating, he tells stories. And it's I gave him a bunch of stuff and he turned it into a thing. This trailer is phenomenal. And I love the way this works because everybody, this is what the Fifth Kingdom is. Your favorite girly said it in her thread write up, which I thought was phenomenal on X. But she quoted me where I said, look, I kind of know everything you can do in this world. I just don't know what it's going to look like. Jan invented the mage. I created the Ember Orders of Kamara. I don't know this character the way that Roscoe does. Roscoe made this woman real. He's the one that made her real. And when I'm watching her on screen, I'm just like the rest of you. I'm watching it just like a fan. It's super cool. And I don't know if every EP has the same feeling, but it's exciting for me. I feel like I own my favorite TV show now. And I'm never gonna get tired of it. Ross, you're up. What's it
Anything you want
like
to
for
add to that,
you?
Ross? I know we have a lot of questions, but anything you want to add to what Zulfiqar had mentioned about what he hands you, which I'm sure is not easy to distill down, and I'm sure that cutting things out that you love in cinematics is not easy. I can imagine it's like giving up your firstborn to some degree. I think you're muted if you're talking. Roscoe, are you with us still? I'm not sure if we lost. Did we lose Roscoe?
Give me one moment. I'm gonna text him.
Okay. See if we lost him. We're gonna get to the questions as soon as he comes back. I'm seeing some really, really great questions. In fact, I have been tagged 155 times in questions. So we're gonna see if we can get to all of these here. 155 questions. I don't know. We're gonna do our best with that one, but we'll jump into the question portion at this point. And by the way, if I skip over your question, it's probably because we are taking questions based on the cinematics. Not really the game right now. Although I will say we do have a game update coming. So I think that game update is coming today. And I think Zulfiqar did tease that a little bit. So we are not going to talk about that necessarily, but there is a big game update coming. We could chat about that, of course, after the AMA is over as well.
More weapons, more classes, more of what you love.
Just take what you love from the game and add more to it.
Yeah, Ross needs to reconnect. But let's go to the questions. If I
Okay,
can
I think
answer.
some of these you can actually answer as well, to be honest, because some of this does involve the creative process. So one question here is, if the Mage cinematic, this is by Nally, by the way, if the Mage cinematic had to be summarized in a single sentence that captures the future of Fifth Kingdom, what would that sentence be?
Awesome. Period.
Okay, well, it's very simple. Well, hey, with 160 some odd questions, we can keep it simple, right?
I'm trying to be succinct. I want to get to everybody. I don't have a single sentence. I'd have to speak in paragraphs and poetic prose. It was awesome. I saw it demoed a little bit last night. I gave some notes, and then I saw it this morning, gave some more notes. I think it's phenomenal. And like I said earlier, it's so cool for me because even though I'm involved in the creative aspect, it's just like what you guys are going to be making in the Fifth Kingdom. I don't know exactly what you're going to make or what it's going to look like, but it's going to be awesome. I have no doubt.
So Mr. Blue is asking, I don't know if this is a question that can be answered because there hasn't been a ton of heroes brought to life yet in the cinematics, but he's asking which class has been the most technically challenging to bring to life in cinematic form so far, and what unique animation or visual effects made it difficult. There's only been two, so I don't know if this is a question that can actually be answered right now or not, but still, I think with the creative process of bringing the characters to life, this could probably still be touched on because the creative process has brought a lot of the characters to life already. We just haven't seen them in the cinematics yet. Do we want to touch on that, Zulfiqar, or you want to?
We'll wait for Ross to come back, and I'll just ask him real quick. He'll probably just talk about some of the
Okay.
intricacies.
Okay, you could definitely answer this one. Nally asks, are there any inspirations from mythology, folklore, or historical magic traditions that shaped the mage's origin story?
Oh yes. Oh yes. So okay, here's something, and I wish Ross is his Discord crashed, so he'll be back. But he can tell you. I do this thing where I overanalyze everything. I'll come up with something and I'll literally make it up. I'll sit on my laptop and I'll write it up, and then I'll send it over to him, and then I will spend like 3 hours thinking, and I'll think of everything I've ever watched that is similar to it. And this is why I talk about themes. Anytime you think that you're biting, anytime you think that you're too derivative, I always do that. I'll be like, oh, well, actually, I watched an episode of this once and it kind of had a scene that was like that, so maybe I shouldn't use it. There's nothing new under the sun. Every archetype, every theme has been played before. What I would like to do is present it in a way that is non-contrived, that is authentic to the story. Everything you see a person do in our cinematics, in our visuals, in our comics, in our written storyline, it'll be because that person is from the world that is the Fifth Kingdom. They're from one of the Fourth Kingdom. They're from one of the Four Kingdoms, the Fifth Kingdom, or the Stepping Sea, or the New Southern Continent that we're expanding. Everything we do will be authentic to the world that the people inhabit. I pull inspiration from, I've mentioned a few things. Tolkien, of course, because he's the man, but he pulled a lot of his stuff from Norse mythology. I pull a lot from history. I pull a lot from, everything. Robert Jordan, Chris Pellini did great with Aragon. He fell off a little bit at the end, but you can't win them all. But really, nobody gives me more inspiration than Raul Rosco Guerrero, and he's back. Your turn. Tell him the question, Shadow.
Hey, Roscoe, are you with us? Is your Discord working, behaving, cooperating now? You're muted, so make sure you unmute yourself. No, still misbehaving?
That's fine. We'll let him tinker a little bit. But yeah, I pull a lot of inspiration. Dragon Riders of Pern.
I'm in.
There we go.
There he is.
Sorry about that. For some reason my Discord just completely crashed on my computer, and it's continually checking for updates, but I'm on my phone.
No problem. Well, with that, we had a question, and you're the only man that can answer it. I think you're the only man on this planet that can answer this question about Fifth Kingdom. So the question came from Mr. Blue. And I don't know, even with the question, we've only brought 2 characters to life. I should say you. So maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't. You can answer on the first 2 at least. He asked, which class has been the most technically challenging to bring to life in cinematic form so far? And what unique animation or visual effects made it difficult?
Ooh, I don't know if one or the other was more difficult. I think that, difficulty level is exceptionally high for both, and so there's no easy way around these things. Kind of touching on what Zulfi was talking about earlier about world building and bringing this whole thing together. Really, what my job is to take this massive amount of lore and all that stuff, and to find a way to tell a story that is somewhat universal. And the way to do that is through character. And so if we can tell a story through character and that has universal themes like loyalty or betrayal or duty or love or any of these things that we all feel, now if I can find a way to tell that, channel that through this character. And I think that we see that kind of in the Mage, right? Where we see that she's given this opportunity to be a part of this school, and then it's falling apart. And of course, she's going to use whatever power she has to come back in and try to save the place, and doing that by whatever means necessary. And then with Archer, it's kind of the opposite, that he's trying to escape his land, and so then he's feeling betrayed, and so that, I think that these are all feelings and emotions that we've all felt. So I think as far as like a difficulty level goes, there's none are harder than the other. I think it's incredibly immersive on my end as a writer, and a director and just a filmmaker, to get in there, take that and internalize that and chew on it and just completely obsess over it for, the course of a week or whatever it takes to make it.
Great. Well, we have a lot of characters to bring to life, so I'm sure as you do that, that question and that answer will just expand a little bit more. D
Every
Young,
day.
yes, yes. D Young off. He's asking, how long does the creative process take from the initial concept and storyboard to the final output that we saw today? How long does that usually take you? I know that depends, but generally.
On my end, for that's again kind of a loaded question, because for Zulfi, he's been putting these together, the storylines, or not the storylines, but just the lore of it all forever, and so then I'll take it. I mean, really, if I'm really cranking, I could do it in a week or so, but that's a very dedicated timeline. That's literally me, sitting down for a day, 2 days straight of just nonstop thinking of storylines. What is a way in? What's a way out of this story that's going to leave people wanting a little bit more? That's not going to give them too much. It's not going to overstay its welcome. But it's also not going to, be too lean and too vague and cheat people out of a good story. So I think about it. I think about a week probably.
And moving on, a Baby Shark. This is a great question. Either one of you can answer this. Yeah, I know. I was trying not to do it. I was holding back, but you brought it up. As the world of Fifth Kingdom expands, do you plan to release longer cinematic episodes or interconnected stories that follow multiple classes interacting in the same narrative? I know the answer to this one. Either one of you can answer this, by the way.
I'm going to pass it to the man. Yeah, Ross, you got any plans for the Fifth Kingdom cinematic universe?
Oh, yeah, of course. I think that you see it right now when you get into like the Mage video, you could already imagine it. I think anybody that's watching this can start imagining, oh, how are these characters going to start interacting? What's going to happen? How are their stories going to influence others' stories, or when are they going to meet each other in the Fifth Kingdom? And is that going to have some impact on the future? And I think, something that we've talked about is expanding this into these sort of almost like an anthology of different storylines. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Game of Thrones. It can be its own thing where we can follow along in the Archer story. And then there's other people from the land of Yulan, and there's other people from these different all the different kingdoms. And there's just so much story to tell. I'll just say it that way. There's so much story to tell. So yeah, we're gonna do a bunch.
Awesome. I can't wait to see the long extended version of these, the actual the episodes, these characters interacting with each other, how the kingdoms interacting with each other, the story, the history, because the history is part of how these kingdoms have come together, right? So the history is a major component that hasn't even really been fully touched on. Forest 56. I won't. It's kind of a long question. I'll kind of summarize it. Basically is asking with the mage class highlight, there's this sort of tug of war between the game style and the way the game graphics look versus these high-end cinematics. And this person was sort of concerned it might become like a visual bait and switch for like people who haven't played the game yet. I can answer that, but I know Zulfiqar, touch on that real quick, because we've had this conversation. And by the way, we're not the first ones to use cinematics. I mean, every game has cutscenes, cinematics, commercials. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a game called Final Fantasy VII. Every Final Fantasy has an amazing cinematic, and then it's a 32-bit game, or a 64-bit game, or 128-bit game, right? We pulled a lot of inspiration from early Blizzard before Activision bought them and ruined the entire franchise and company. Respect, Chris Metzen. But no, it's just a way to tell a storyline. Don't forget, everybody, Fifth Kingdom is not any one thing. It's not any one thing. It's not an NFT project. It's not even just a Web3 company. The Fifth Kingdom is a setting, and it's a setting where we talked about last time, where we are going to tell stories. You are going to tell stories in different modalities. So we are just demonstrating different ways that we are bringing the immersion of the Fifth Kingdom to you. The NFTs are going to be your access pass. That's going to be how you interface and build our digital world. The video game is going to be how you extract resources and how the DeFi components mix with the play to earn components. The storyline is going to be told through comics, through visuals. It all comes together. We are bringing value to you with every modality we can think of. If it operates through a 1 and a 0, we think you deserve to have it. So enjoy each part for what it is. The playstyle, the graphics are the way they are for a reason. It's a type of game. We will be releasing different games to experience the Fifth Kingdom in different ways. But if you all want us to charge maybe like $10,000 per NFT, then we can give you a AAA title. But this one's coming out of my own pocket, so we got what we got.
Well, also, I wanna mention in that video, which I mean, I would love to ask Roscoe about that video because he's the one who made it. But hey, look, we have him here. We can ask him. You can see the gameplay morphing into the cinematic, so you can see what's happening. It's not like, hey guys, this cinematic is the game. You can see the game, you can see the cinematic, you can see how they're both kind of playing into each other. So it's actually a very good, I think, fusion and mix of both worlds. And many games do this. I almost looked at that sort of like as a commercial, to be honest. It reminded me of like a League of Legends type commercial. Every game has cinematics. I mean, that's how you tell stories. It's very difficult to tell stories, effective stories, with the graphics of the in-game. There's always this sort of debate in every game. Grand Theft Auto and every big AAA title goes through this as to whether are we showing in-game footage, and they'll put a little footer, not in-game footage, just to make sure people know. But anyway, hopefully that answers that question. And I want to jump in. This is a really, really good question from Golden Muslima. When creating a class cinematic, how do you balance making it visually spectacular while ensuring that it remains faithful to the actual gameplay experience? That's a really good question. I think either one of you could probably answer that, whoever wants to.
Yeah, Rush, you want to take that one? Because you made some editorial choices that I thought were just gangster. They were great.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big challenge, of course, and people have mentioned that in the chat that you're going from this kind of crawler, relatively simple game, and then representing that in the cinematic. But also that's what's cool about it. That's what makes it really, really fun. Is okay, what's happening in that world if we zoom in and actually see what's happening there. And so I really try to stay extremely faithful to what's happening in the game. I see the what kind of powers you're using or what kind of enemies are there, and I try to then represent that in a cinematic visual. I mean, so just it's all, as I say, it's all there on the page, and so and in this case, it's all there in the game. And so I just kind of pull from that, and then I make sure that I'm checking back with Zulfi and Shadow, and that I'm not going too far into my own little creative hole, and making sure that I stay true to the lore. But yeah, it's a big collaboration, making sure that we aren't doing things that are too far out of bounds of what's actually in the game.
Also, it's how our brains work. I mean, anyone who's ever read a book, you're not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself. Maybe I'm the weirdo, but I play what I'm reading in my head like it is a movie. I'm not seeing like the beginning of Star Wars. I'm not seeing text scrolling through my head. I'm envisioning what I'm reading. When I play these games, that's how I imagine the game when I'm in the game. I'm in there hacking and slacking. I'm shooting fireballs. And anyone who's played our game, I thought that you selected just the coolest thing. When the mage goes ahead and she's getting overwhelmed, so she gets a new weapon, and it's Dragon's Breath. Which, by the way, if you saw me playing last night, I got a little inspired, so I was rocking the Dragon's Breath. It's a great weapon. It's powerful, it's fun, and that's what our game is. Every little power up you get makes it feel like you could take yourself to the next level. Till you get to stage 10, you get humbled. It happens to all of us.
Exactly. Let's go ahead and move on here just a little bit. I'll take this question. It's a really quick one. It's more of a business question, but it is kind of based on the cinematics from NASA. Asking how are we based on the cinematics and the talent of Roscoe and the building of the game and sort of all that. How are we balancing budget Well, a lot of business doesn't just come
That's all
down
you.
to yeah, a lot of business doesn't just come down to balancing budget. It comes down to negotiating. So balancing budget is the best way I know how to describe it is just like juggling three swords on fire. You make a mistake, it's not forgiving. So a lot of balancing budget is making sure that ones and zeros and nines and fives and all that, yes, they balance, but it's what doesn't show up on balancing a budget that is actually more important than the budget, which is the negotiations and the agreements that you can come up with. And we fortunately have a team also that has done a lot of work for free, if I could be very honest with you, because of the passion behind what we're building. So, there's a lot more that goes into that, but I don't want to make this too much about a business type of conversation. But I hope that answers that question just briefly. So, Tech Dan is asking a really good question. Do you envision the class cinematics eventually forming a larger interconnected narrative where players realize each origin story was actually revealing pieces of a much bigger mystery within the Fifth Kingdom? That's a really good, great question. I think Tech Dan has watched a few shows.
Why don't you let us surprise you, brother? Why don't you let me surprise you? I'll point out one Easter egg. It's a great question. I'll point out one Easter egg. Y'all might have noticed in our game, you're gathering embers. In the cinematic, you notice that embers power the Ember Orders. Throughout all the four kingdoms, Ember has existed and it's been used for one thing or another. We just revealed that it eventually gets drained. Where is the one place in our world that we know where fresh ember exists? The southern continent. And where do you have to go in order to get it? The Fifth Kingdom. We'll see what comes from that.
And Skaterman's asking, when you're designing the class cinematics, do you start the gameplay mechanics first, or do you start with the character's personality and backstory? Like, where do you begin? It's a really good question to tell that story.
Sorry, was the question about the class highlights or the origins?
It says class cinematics, so I don't know for sure. I think just probably these origins would be my guess.
Ross, how do you start?
I go from I think just kind of like I touched on already. I go from character, and so I sort of work backwards and who's that. What are the characteristics of this particular person, and then how would they react in certain situations? What are they, are they going to be aggressive, and or are they going to, I think it was kind of fun with this mage one where she's not this sort of kind of cold-blooded killer or something like that, where we have we have different stories coming up. There's different types of characters, and so with Mage, I mean, she's just a very, very human character, and so I think that for me, it's starting with character. Just long story short, yeah, it's starting with the character, and then trying to build outwardly from that.
Awesome. Let's see here. So just moving on. How do you strike a balance from D Young Prof? How do you strike a balance between the perfect balance, the perfect balance, which I know is very easy to do, right? Between a high fidelity cinematic storytelling and representing the actual in-game mechanics, because there's the in-game mechanics, not just the highlight video, but the actual origins. I know that there are things from the game being put in that. How do you balance that without showing the game? Like, what does that sort of process look like?
Is that for me?
Yeah, that would be for you, brother.
Oh, sorry. Say that again.
So, there's one. It's one thing to show the gameplay highlights, right, and the mechanics and the things like that. Then there's some portions from the game that are being brought into the actual origin cinematics. How do you strike a perfect balance between the cinematic storytelling and representing the in-game mechanics so it doesn't feel like it's like forced?
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just inspiration, just whatever that thing, whatever I'm seeing in that game, and then I can channel that and filter that and distill that, synthesize that into my own little creative energy, and then whatever I kind of spit out, it's going to be a sort of perspective based, but I think it's again trying to stay true to the game, but there's a certain element that's going to end up being just my interpretation of it.
Right, and also the game doesn't exist in a That's what I'm looking for here. It doesn't exist in a silo. There's an overarching setting that the game is a participation activity of. So Ross can take the rules of the wider world, keep faithfully to the game dynamics, because the game dynamics exist in the same world, and then just adding characters on top of it. I mean, the mage really blew me away. She seems awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait for episode 2.
Um, Johnny, you keep asking questions about, you think we're like hiding something from the game? Brother, the game is on the website. You can go play it. And the last video before this, we showed the gameplay. So when you're saying we're not showing the gameplay, we have done nothing but show the gameplay. So I would recommend you go and play it. And when you're playing games, you'll notice cinematics are a common thing. It's not like we are the only ones doing that. Actually, in fact, I would say we're the only ones doing that in the Web3 space, telling the story the way we're telling it. But go play the game, then you'll see the graphics.
Well, you're being nicer than me, Shadow. Johnny, brother, go play the game right now. It's live. It's not a secret. I wish everyone would go tell their friends. fifthkingdom.com/game. Bring a friend.
Hey, so this is a really good question, and I'm sure, Roscoe, you've gotten this question before. From NASA, Raul Rosco Guerrero is credited as the creative talent, behind this cinematic, which shows real human artistry. But the video also uses AI enhanced sequences as part of the production and whatnot. In an industry where AI and human creative work are increasingly blurred, how does Fifth Kingdom define where Roscoe's creative authorship ends and the AI enhancement begins? So kind of like this balance between the human creativity, the AI component, and how that whole dichotomy sort of comes together, which I'm sure it's not the first time you've been asked this in your line of work.
Yeah, well, I'll just follow this up real quick for you, Ross, just so everyone understands. It's a little bit, I mean, it's a good question, but we need to make sure we understand the robots do robot things, humans do human things. Just because I use a laptop to write doesn't mean the laptop wrote the story. Just because you use Photoshop doesn't mean that Photoshop created the image. So I'll pass it to you, Ross, but everyone should remember that AI is a tool. It is not the outcome. And you can tell the difference between AI slop and AI assisted generated content.
Yeah, it is interesting. And look, man, it is a fascinating world that we have found ourselves in right now. And me, I for one am excited about it. I know a lot of people kind of push back on it. But I know, look, I live in Hollywood. I work within the industry. Everybody I know is using AI tools in one way or another. And I think that with this is like an absolute perfect example of the best possible use case scenario for it. Because if we're on this incredibly tight timeline, we have a week. There's 0% chance you're going to be able to go get that generated traditionally. But in the same way that when CGI started versus doing in-camera tricks, it is almost exactly the same thing. But I still, I can even share this with the group because it might actually demystify some of this stuff, and you can really see a little bit behind the curtain of. I make every single frame. Not every single frame, but every single shot. So I'll go generate each one of those shots, and each one of those shots would then be the result of many generations that had to come out to get it just right. And I'm using language like I would just on set, or just like if I'm making a shot list for an actual movie or commercial or music video or something. So I'll write in there, a medium shot, dolly in, close up into the eye, right? Or then I'll do a reverse shot. What is her POV? What is she looking at? I'll do a landscape sweeping over the exterior, something like that. And then I piece it together. But you have to have an inherent knowledge of how movies work. You have to know what you're doing a little. I mean, I guess you don't. You could make slop like Zulfi was just saying. But I think that in order for something to have this kind of cinematic appeal like this does, it's just coming from a place of knowing storytelling and knowing filmmaking and then utilizing those tools. I mean, I was like, even just working on this the past couple of days and just like in awe. I was like looking over at my girlfriend. I'm like, what we're doing right now was absolutely impossible even a few months ago, and so it's just really like, it is so cutting edge. It's just wild, but it really is. At the end of the day, it's storytelling and it's filmmaking. That is what it is, and then putting together shot for shot for shot for shot. and piecing it together, and so finding that little pipeline. But I don't know how far I strayed from the question, but I think I got some of it.
No, I think that's important because I've tried to explain this to people a little bit. It's not like you write in a prompt saying, "Tell a story of a young mage from Kamara, and she has to save the academy by finding fresh ember in the Fifth Kingdom, and she kills a guy when she finds the map." It doesn't work that way. I mean, you send the stills, and I'm blown away, and then every scene has to be put together, and you're just like a surgeon sewing them together, making sure everything fits. And everything that you do is just like if I was on set watching you film in real life, except for everyone doesn't have to hold their breath so they don't ruin the shot.
Absolutely. And even with this one, there's little moments where you just have to have some filmmaking instincts. For instance, when she's looking at the ember at the end of this mage video, I need something to trigger her being nervous. And so I input little sounds of the bear boss in the background to kind of drum up what is that behind her before to lead into her looking over, just simple things. But those are things that if you just wrote in, hey AI, make me a trailer, it ain't gonna look like that. I'll tell you that. So it's just there's just there's so much human element that has to go into it. It's almost honestly, it's primarily human, with the exception of just the actual generations themselves. But like everything is figured out before you hit the generate button.
And then also just a side note for the audience, the tools that we're using are not really publicly available. These are the same tools that Ross would use when he works with like Bad Robot or J.J. Abrams' company. I mean, these are high level tools that are used in Hollyweird.
Well, it's interesting, right? 'Cause I use AI a lot, and it's infiltrated a lot of different industries. I use AI a lot for like coding, right? Coding different things, whether it's on the website. You still have to understand coding, otherwise you will notice. And many times I've noticed, I'm thinking, well, that's not right. You can't do that. That doesn't work that way. So you see right now, actually, there's a little bit of a pushback against AI. I know companies such as Starbucks and some other very large, brands are actually ditching AI because it has blown through budgets. It has made a lot of inventory management mistakes. So I think what we're seeing now is look, it's a tool, but it can't replace a professional, right? You have to have, you don't have to have both, but it's no different than when they were using CGI in the late 90s, even early 90s, to be honest. The CGI wasn't doing the work. The humans were doing the work. CGI is just a weapon. It's like getting into a car and driving somewhere. So Favi, I'm probably saying that wrong, is asking a really great question, and I know the answer, but I want to get a little more specific with it, which is, has there ever been a cinematic idea you loved but deliberately cut because it belonged to a future reveal instead of the major journey? I know the answer is yes, but I want to actually expand on that question a little bit. There's got to be an emotional element. I don't want to get rid of that, but I have to do it. How do you balance that decision? Because I know there's a lot of creativity and emotion being put into these videos. So being able to cut something, you have to be able to balance that whole thing. And how does that whole process go? That sort of tug of war goes.
I can't do it, so I make Roscoe do it.
It's part of the job. I mean, it really is. I think that over the years, you get so, you need to have brevity in these things. You need to be, they call it killing your darlings, for a reason. There's a very, common term. And there's so many things that if it doesn't serve the purpose of the plot, if it doesn't serve the purpose of that storyline, and you see it in writing all the time, and this is all, it always comes back down to writing. There are things that are flourishes, things that are fun, things that you love. You want to see this player, you want to see this character do this thing, and it maybe doesn't actually drive the plot forward. Well, man, I might have to end up on the cutting room floor, and that cutting room floor is just filled with all these beautiful babies. But
And I'll just say one thing, because I've been in the editorial room with you before. Sometimes the best version of a scene does get cut because it doesn't fit as well with what comes after or what comes after that. That's what kills me. That's what I could never do, because I look at these things like, that was the best version of that line delivery. How could you cut that? And then when you watch it as a step back, you go, okay, well, yeah, well, I guess technically it is better with that version, but I still love this one, and no one's ever going to see it.
Yeah, that's the whole game, and it could be brutal. But at the end of the day, you just want to tell a good story that's easy to track. It's like you cannot overestimate how important it is to make something that is actually digestible. And Lord knows I've made a lot of things that are wildly convoluted, and at the end of it, people are scratching their heads like, what was that about? And so over the years, I've learned to make it very simple. If it's very simple, if the plot is simple, then you can hang complex stuff on that simple storyline. I like that.
It's that rewatchability. I watched it for
Yeah.
the third time. It's like, oh, I didn't see that before.
Right.
There's a lot of questions I'm skipping over because there's a lot of questions about NFT mint and the game and the mechanic. Like, guys, we are discussing purely cinematics today, so
July
Google.
27th. Buy as many as you can, as fast as you can. Next.
Yeah. Yeah. So questions in terms of the mint and the game and all that. Those are great questions, but go ahead and tag us in the general chat. We'll of course have another AMA next week. We'll be a little bit more generalized for those kind of questions, but I'm skipping over those just mainly because we're focusing on the cinematics today. But feel free to ask those questions again after the AMA in the general chat, and be happy to answer all of those as best we can. So this is a really good question. I know we're almost hitting our time here of an hour, so we'll wrap this up after a few more. I mean, there's literally, I'm looking at, like, I think I've been asked 300 questions. So I think it's a physical impossibility to answer 300 questions. So we're going to just do the best we can. This might be the first time we didn't answer everyone. James Leakin is asking a question, and it's, as the Fifth Kingdom continues to grow beyond the Mage, and of course we've had the Archer origin as well, how do you plan to keep every new chapter feeling like a meaningful continuation of the same world instead of just adding more content? So there's got to be some internal principles or a framework that sort of guide your writing to make sure that, people are being surprised with new releases, and it just isn't just adding more content and layering it, but it's actually sort of expanding the story, but from a different point of view. What's that sort of look like?
Well, I gave Roscoe a big sandbox. Now I pass it to him.
Yep. I mean, that's another just big challenge of all this. And I was very, very, very acutely aware of that going into the Mage video, is how do I not tell the same story over again? What we saw with the Archer story. And so it's completely different. I mean, she's entering the Fifth Kingdom with completely different motives. And I think that's exciting. And then, as we said earlier, is that all these stories will then eventually interconnect. They will all kind of be informing one another, and it will just continue. Yeah, it'll never just be just random or just expanded just content. We're not in the business of making content. I think it's going to be we're building stories. We're building a world.
Exactly. And this is interesting. There's so many decisions that are being made, I'm sure, behind the creation of these cinematics. There's these little moments that you probably would love to capture and put in a bottle to relive, I'm sure. But Favi asks a really good question. And, she's saying, with the audience is seeing basically the finished cinematic. Every scene, there's dozens of creative decisions that I know you're making that never make it to the video. Looking back at the Mage origin, which unseen decision do you think had the greatest impact on the final story, even though players will never know it existed? Only Roscoe knows.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's again, it's too loaded because there's so much lore. So there's not one specific thing that is, I'm kind of holding back. There's a lot. There's a whole world. I mean, I'm telling you, Zulfi's gave me pages and pages and pages of world stuff that I had to read through and pull out, and like literally let that all kind of settle and distill all of that and think, okay, what is the note underneath the note? What is the sort of broader implication of all these different things? And how is that going to inform this character, and how does she move? How does she move in the world? What inspires her? So I think what you see on screen is the character. that I wanted to show, and then what secret sauce behind there is it's too much to list, and there's too many things to list.
Boy, exactly. D Young Prof, we plan to have AMAs weekly. Is maybe more often. He's asking how frequently hosting AMAs, developer diaries, live streams, he keeps the community updated. As often as possible. As often as possible. As often as I can find the time to, which is limited with what we're building. Let's see here. So we're going to answer a couple more and wrap this up. Crips is asking, each class appears to have a unique personality. Beyond the visual design, how do the cinematics communicate the philosophy, the strengths, and the identity of each class before players even enter the game? Or I would say before they even watch it. How are you communicating sort of those in the videos themselves?
You see it. You see it in the situations these characters get put in, and you see how they interact with each other. You're seeing a very short, very fast-hitting component, but with this last one, we have more supporting characters than we did before. So look at how they interact. I mean, I loved the way that Ross put in the juxtaposition between the pyromancer and our mage when they're play fighting, and you see the playfulness, you see the friendship. Ross, your turn.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that Zulfi, you hit it right. It's just within their character actions, and I think that's the only thing that we can do. That's the only way that we can kind of reveal that stuff. It's just the way that people move in the world, and historically, the only way. I was listening to a podcast the other day where they're talking about Game of Thrones stuff, and just the only way you can tell stories that are that big is by telling them tiny, by telling small, little, individual character stories. And then there's a whole world around them.
It's interesting because you have to hold back, and I'm sure as a creative person, it's probably not easy to hold back and to remove. We've talked about that, cutting certain content, but also holding back in the sort of that creative, system, because you have to tell something in a short little window, and then you have to expand upon it. This is a this is a dangerous question. Ivar the Boneless. I'm going to ask Zulfiqar this question. If you had an unlimited budget and no technical constraints, what is one cinematic feature or sequence you've always wanted to create but haven't been able to yet? That's a dangerous question. Zulfiqar, what's one thing you've always wanted to do if you had an unlimited budget and no technical constraints?
Okay, Ross is my witness. I've talked about it for years. I've waited for the stars to align. I want to do, and this is just Fifth Kingdom related, so I'll save the other one. But I want to do. I almost feel bad calling it, and Ross might wince when I say short form storytelling. I want to have an HBO style series where it's 45 minutes to 150, 45 minutes to 75 minutes per episode, where you're with us an hour a week and we're doing 7 to 10 episodes, maybe 10 to 12. That's what I would like to do. That's how I'd like to tell big, grandiose stories in the Fifth Kingdom and invite people in. I would do almost like mini movies every single week, inshallah.
I mean, that sounds great. It sounds like a lot of work for me.
I believe in you more than you believe in yourself.
Let's see. How about two more questions? Because that's a tough order. I'm seeing I've been tagged 298 times, so I'm gonna try to pick two out of them. I'm gonna pick 1% basically. No, we'll like I said, a lot of the questions are mint or game related or system or white paper. So that's why I'm skipping over those. If I didn't answer your question, it's not personal. Just go ahead and tag us in the general chat. We'll go ahead and answer those as well. This is a great question by Crystal. And this is going to be very subjective, I think, depending on who's answering the question. I would answer this differently than you guys would. But how do you measure whether a class showcase has been successful? Is it player engagement, community feedback, or something else? I would almost rephrase that. Not that there's anything wrong with the question, but I would almost rephrase that. When you're releasing anything, cinematic-wise, with the combination of the gameplay and the mage the other day, how do you measure whether something is successful? What does that look like? I guess this isn't Hollywood, right, where you have an award show or anything like that. So the answer is a little different, but uh, answer that the best you can, because I have a kind of an opinion, but I'll leave that to you guys.
I got a quick one. I think if it's cool, and I think if it highlights an aspect of the game that makes it cool. So like the class highlight we just did, it showed the mage starts out with her arc lightning. It's awesome. But then she needs a little bit of extra help, so she gets a secondary weapon. It's the dragon breath, and that just takes her to the next level. That's how it is in the game. But also, it was cool.
I think that's spot on. What Zolfi's saying there, and it's so like, it's not a very precise science. There is no precision to it at all. It really is just gut feeling. Does this feel right? Does it feel cool? Do you think it's cool? Am I hearing you tell me that it's cool? If you tell me it's cool, I'm a needy artist. So if you tell me that, then I'm feeling pretty good. But that's about the only measure I have for something that's successful. Of course, like a company's going to have ROI and all this kind of stuff. But for me, the guy that's just sitting in front of a computer for 12 hours straight every day, it's like, just if you like it, then I'm happy.
He's a simple man.
It's tough, right? Because man, you're telling a story. I've recorded videos. You guys have seen some of the walkthroughs and tutorials and all that type of stuff, and that's obviously completely different. It's more of an explanation, and of course, writing the light paper and the white paper and designing it. So I kind of think of how do you measure success in anything you release, in any piece of content, and it's whether what you are communicating is in the other person's head or not. If what you've communicated, whether that's a story or whether that's an explanation or whether that's an ecosystem, if what you're communicating isn't in the other person's head, you probably didn't do a good job. So I think if you're communicating a story and the person gets the story, great. If you're communicating a concept and somebody understands the concept, you're successful. That's sort of how I look at it. And people I think on the internet are looking for likes and retweets and comments, and that's fine. That's I guess one metric of success. But you could bot that. You can't bot understanding. You can't bot storytelling. So let's see here. I think we will, unless Zulfiqar, you're seeing any questions that are urgent. Is the wrong word, but something you really want to answer. I'm going to see if I can grab maybe one more. There was a question. I'm trying to remember who asked it. I think it was, here we go. It's from D Young Prof. I thought this was a really good question. Are there specific lore items or hidden Easter eggs embedded? He's asking about a specific video, but I want to ask this just for every cinematic. Is there things that you're embedding in the video? Is there Easter eggs? Is there things that, oh, you remember this from this video? Sort of like when I've watched The Matrix probably 2 or 3 dozen times, and I feel like every time I watch it, I've noticed something I didn't notice before, and then I noticed that they expanded on that in the second movie. And you didn't even know that until you went back and watched the first one again. So we could have anything like that where there were things that, oh, if you noticed this in the original video, we're now expanding on that, and you had to kind of like pay attention to that if it was there. Anything like that you threw in there that we might be wanting to be on the lookout for?
Yes, and the thing is, it's not in a sort of a sneaky, tricky way. It's more because I'm basing it on so much lore, and I'm using that to inform every shot, right? And so there's things that I just can't explain within the context of 3 minutes, this 3-minute thing, but that will pay off later. And so if you watch, watching through these origin films, there are little things that will feel like an Easter egg later, but it really is just because it's part of the lore. It's part of the story. I just don't have enough time to explain it in this particular one.
Let me ask that to Zulfiqar. When it comes to writing, because we're going to probably end with this question. When it comes to writing the lore, the kingdoms, the characters, I don't want to necessarily say Easter eggs, but there's things I think that you're placing, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's things that you're placing that are part of the history that you're looking to expand upon later, and you're sort of planting a seed to see how it grows. Am I right or wrong?
100% correct. George Martin gave a interview once where he talked about there are different writing styles, and I actually do have a style that's very similar to his. And he calls it gardening. So you use the seed metaphor. I create rules, and I have this giant world that we've been working on for so long. And there's these rules. So if I create a character, I say, okay, well, here's the seed, here's the character, here's where they're from, here's this, and then I just start going, okay, well, if that's true, then they'll be like this, 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 this. These are the situations they've been in. These are the options they could have made. Well, if he did that, then this. And so it almost gets into my architectural brain where I start thinking, if this, then, and I start like computer coding in my head. Everything just has to feel real. I hate retcons. I think they are the laziest, worst thing ever. I hate them. And I've said before, we are trying very hard to create a product. We are utilizing the Web3, the Web2 space. We are using the digital space to bring this product to you as a delivery mechanism. But we are trying to create a product that is really, really, really worthy of the audience. Whether it's what you're observing, what you're purchasing, what you're using, what you're consuming, everything we do when we put it out for prime time, when we put it out and it's ready for public consumption, it's got our seal of approval on it. We feel like this is a premium product and this is what you deserve. I hate retcons. So that's all I have to say about that.
How about this? We'll kind of end the AMA on this last question. This is a really great way to wrap it up. Sam Wissy, are we going to have this in a series or like a whole movie? I love the way you asked that question. Yeah, are we going to have a series, guys, or like a whole movie? What are we planning for here?
The answer is yes. But I think in the immediate future, to be very candid, like just post-launch, Ross and I sort of have an idea for a secret level like anthology.
Yes, 100%. And then being able to weave those things together. But I think, yeah, immediately a kind of an anthology style series that once put all together, then it feels like, it'll feel like a series. It'll feel like a movie.
So we have something here in the United States, and I don't know if this exists in other countries. It's called Black Friday. I don't know if this exists a whole lot more these days because people shop online now, but it's the day after it's basically the day the Christmas shopping begins, and people camp outside stores, and as soon as the store opens, everybody's running over each other. They're trampling each other. They're hitting each other with shopping carts. That's kind of like what the chat is like. If I could describe the chat, it's a little bit like a Black Friday shopping event. It's a lot of questions and a lot of people tripping over each other's questions. Be nice in the chat, please. I see some people. I don't know if you guys are joking with each other or actually trampling over each other, but there was a lot of questions, and there was a lot of people wanted certain questions answered about the game and the white paper and the light paper and the mint, and I understand all that. We will answer those questions as much as you guys want to ask them, but today was mostly focused around the cinematic. So any question you have about the mint, the NFT cost, the light paper, white paper, the token, the game, please go into the general chat, tag us. Me and Zulfiqar, you could DM us if you prefer to have the question asked privately. We'll be more than happy to answer that. But to answer that question on an AMA where we're supposed to be focused on cinematics, just wasn't the time to do that, especially when we have Roscoe taking the time to answer those. So I hope you guys enjoyed this AMA. Again, the Mage Origin video is going to be uploaded separately from the AMA. I'll get the AMA. Again, I have a sort of a history of getting these up by Monday. If I can get it up sooner than that, I will definitely try to get it up sooner than that. But I'll get the Mage video up a little bit sooner than that as well. Zulfiqar or Roscoe, anything you guys want to close with before we wrap up?
I did notice one comment in the chat that I just wanted to address. It was something about being a little bit, I don't know, curious or suspicious about the 1 week turnaround. And it's doable, but it's only doable because I'm spending like 12 plus hours in front of the computer, and so I don't know if it's necessary, if I needed to address that, but I think it's just, I don't want anybody to think that there's any sort of like plug and play to this at all. It is literally me sitting there cranking with all of my might to get these things done. So But anyways, I'm glad that everybody seems to be enjoying it, and I'm just glad to be the person that's able to tell these stories for y'all.
Yeah, I can assure you, I see Roscoe up till like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning working on these. So you can't do that if it's just AI doing all of the work. So I know that he's put in a lot of work, and we didn't even really discuss much about Madison with the vocals, but they're both putting in a lot of work. So we appreciate you, Roscoe, and Madison as well, of course, in helping us create these and put this world, not put it to paper, as the common saying says, but take it from paper and make it really a livable, breathable world that people can actually live in. So thank you for taking the time to do that. We all appreciate it, and we're all looking forward to seeing how this story can expand as the Fifth Kingdom, expands itself.
Right, and I'll just comment on that real quick. The proof's in the pudding, and the pudding's in the eating. So, anybody who may be concerned that AI is a tool, a tech tool that's being used, take what we have produced and compare it to anything else you can find. I saw somebody today post on X a new video game that's coming out. I think it's a video game, I don't know. But they did an AI video, and you can tell it's an AI video. The voiceover was trash. The sequencing was trash. The narrative avatar was trash. And that's me being polite. It was terrible. I looked at it and I said, oh, wow. So they plugged this into some cheap AI thing and said, hey, draw this. It doesn't work that way. I've tried. That's how I know it doesn't. So just take what we've built and compare it. I would like to see. Compare our products to any other products out there. There is no comparison. And I'll leave it to that, because otherwise I'm going to start casting shade on some people.
And that's what we have built without taking in a single dollar from the public. Again, like I said, I always mention this coming from Web 2. I believe you come to a consumer, you come to an audience, you come to a community with value, instead of saying, hey guys, give me money, and then 18 months from now I'll try to build something and maybe I'll come out with value, later on, after I bought, a plane and a boat and a new house and a new car with your money. They don't word it that way, of course, but it's always
And then
based
you
on
don't
hype.
and then you don't complete the project and say, I don't know, guys, we're out of money. I don't know what happened. We gave it our best shot.
Guys, we did the best we could. So I believe in coming, inviting somebody over to dinner and making sure dinner is prepared on the table, hot and ready when they show up, rather than asking them to make the dinner when they get to your home. So that's sort of my philosophy, as a business owner, and then especially, coming into Web3, I just don't think we see that very often. So coming with the game, this game right now that we have an update coming today. I'll check with Jan to see where we're at. But this game that we have is something folks wish they had 8, 9, 10 months into development. What they've done in just a very short time is incredible. What Roscoe and his team is doing in such a short time frame is incredible. And I think what we've built here is exceptionally unique, as Zulfiqar said, when you compare it with, folks trying to build only in a bull market just so they can grab the hype, rather than a bear market, which I think if you build, whether this is a bear market or just a skeptical market, if you build in that type of market, you can actually see whether what you have has value or whether what you have is just trying to ride the train of hype, right? And there is a major difference, because if you're just riding the train of hype, it will soon disappear. If you're building something of value, it will surpass, even when projects die from a lack of hype. So, anything you want to close with, Zulfiqar, before we wrap up?
I just love what you just said, because I'll stand by it. I'll stand 10 toes on that comment. We know a lot of founders. I feel like Conor McGregor. I could go into detail, and I will. We know a lot of founders, big founders, people you guys would know. And everybody always wants to tell me at dinner, oh man, I've got this great idea. Boom, 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 boom. And they get me stoked on it, just like they get you stoked on it. I get hype. I mean, I'm a consumer. I'm like, oh, dude, that's awesome. When are you guys gonna come out with it? We're waiting for a bull market. And I'm like, why? Well, because and I'm like, oh, let me guess. Because people get silly with their money, they start gambling, and you know that your product sucks, and you just want to trick people. Okay, got it. Next. It doesn't matter what the sentiment is. If it's a good product, people will want it. Nobody's ever done what we've done at Fifth Kingdom, because if they could have, they would have. But after we launch, and after we're successful, and after everybody here is doing what we hope that we will be doing, there's going to be a lot of copycats, and they're going to mess it up. because they'll see what we did, they won't see why we did it, and they won't be the people doing it. And so the one thing I want to leave everyone with is it's my hope that this project, this company, is exactly what everybody expected Web3 to be 6 years ago when we started getting into it. When you have a Fifth Kingdom NFT, that's the club everyone's going to want to join. When you consume our content, it won't just be masterfully, artistically well put together. It'll be enjoyable. And
You know
I'm
what?
looking forward to hearing it.
I can't think of a better way to end. So we'll go ahead and end with that. Again, for the folks that are there, if I could answer a question, please tag me in general chat if there's something that we didn't answer as it pertains either to the cinematics or to the game, the Fifth Kingdom ecosystem, the NFTs, anything like that. We'll be sure to take care of you as best as we can. So with that, guys, we want to thank you for joining us today. We'll have this AMA uploaded soon to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't. Follow us on X, Telegram, you know, all the normal places. And with that, guys, thanks for tuning in. Take care. God bless. We will talk soon.
Thank you, everybody.